You're joining us from the 2012 American Heart Association Scientific Sessions to hear the eagerly anticipated results of the RELIABLE study. RELIABLE is the large follow-up of the hugely successful RELY trial. This latest study looked at the effects of dabigatran etexylate, Pradaxa. This novel medication for Boehringer-Ingelheim is for patients with irregular heart rhythm, called atrial fibrillation. Combined, the studies provide over 4 years of safety and efficacy knowledge on dabigatran. This is the first and only data showing how a novel oral anticoagulant is performing over the long term in clinical practice. It also provided insights on the relative benefits of 2 different twice-daily doses, a lower dose of 110 milligrams and a higher one of 150 milligrams for stroke prevention in non-valvular atrial fibrillation. It's an exciting time for physicians and patients across the world. So let's now hear from RELIABLE study lead investigator, Professor Stuart Connolly of McMaster University, Canada, who's going to present the results of the study for us.
Well, RELIABLE was a follow-up study to RELY. As is well known, dabigatran etexylate was studied in the large global RELY trial with a mean follow-up of 2 years, which compared 2 doses of dabigatran to standard therapy with warfarin. The 150 milligram dose of dabigatran reduced stroke or systemic embolism by 35%. The 110 dose was non-inferior to warfarin with a 20% reduction in major bleeding. Both doses had a very big impact on intracerebral bleeding and intracranial bleeding. Patients who were receiving dabigatran in RELY were able to continue to receive that dose of dabigatran, during an extended period of follow-up. Approximately 6,000 dabigatran patients were enrolled in RELIABLE and followed for a mean follow-up of about 2.25 years. The main results of RELIABLE are that the same event rates that we saw in RELY with dabigatran continued to be observed during the RELIABLE follow-up period, showing that the effects of dabigatran are consistent over long-term follow-up. This is true both for ischemic outcomes, such as ischemic stroke, and it's also true for hemorrhagic outcomes. Both doses have very similar and very low rates of both hemorrhagic stroke and subdural hemorrhage, the major complications of warfarin therapy. It's of particular note that the very low rates of intracerebral bleeding that we saw in RELY continue to be seen with dabigatran during the RELIABLE period. RELIABLE also allows us to compare in some more detail the 2 doses of dabigatran. During RELY, we saw that dabigatran 150 has a lower rate of ischemic stroke, but a higher rate of major hemorrhage compared to dabigatran 110. Similar patterns are seen during the RELIABLE period. The 2 doses, however, are almost identical in the outcome of total mortality and in other measures of net clinical benefit. So the final conclusion is that the results of RELY are consistently seen during long-term follow-up. There were no surprises. We essentially confirmed that the rates of events that were observed during the RELY study continue beyond the end of RELY for an additional follow-up of 2.3 years on average, so that over a period of more than 4 years, we now see consistently low rates of stroke and systemic embolism and of major bleeding on dabigatran.